And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, we got to give a huge shout out to listener Tony, who emailed us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, a graphic that he made for the California Crime Blotter. You can see it on both Johnny's Twitter and my Twitter. Johnny's Twitter is at JohnnyDon'tLike, and mine is at Randy Wang Radio, and it is fantastic.
And it looks like he took some creative license with the cleavage of the ladies from Reseda.
I think AI made it.
No, I know.
Wait, are you trying to tell me that listener Tony had nothing to do with that?
Maybe it's possible.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. And right now it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions? No, I know.
What?
I was looking at the graphic when I played that sound.
The first edition of today's Crime Blotter takes us to Mort's Deli.
In Tarzana, they've really crossed a line here. Someone cut a hole into the roof at Mort's, and they weren't looking for pastrami.
There's supposed to be a hole in the middle of the bagel, not on the roof.
For more, here's KTLA.
Now to Tarzana, where an iconic deli was hit by a burglar overnight who sawed a hole right through the roof to get in.
Now police are searching for this guy.
It's not some fancy bank vault. It's a deli.
Well, this one will be cheaper to fix than having a Hyundai come right through the front wall.
Now police are searching for this guy caught in the act by surveillance. KTLA's Sarah Welch is live in Tarzana with the story. Sarah?
You know, when the assignment editor at a local station is passing out pieces and you know that some people are going to have to go to a hit and run that happened here, some people are going to have to go somewhere here, you probably raise your hand as high as you can go if you got to go cover the deli that got burglarized, because then you get to have lunch there.
Oh, I'd be Johnny on the spot.
Sharon, Micah, good evening. Yeah, they've got this guy on camera, and customers and neighboring business owners, they are disappointed that yet again there was another crime in this area. And in this case, they find it so bizarre that this man was able to get in and get out this way. Look.
We discovered the hole straight through the roof and the ceiling.
Not your typical break-in.
When our chef called and said that we had a break-in, we didn't really know how it occurred because the door was still locked.
There was no hammer, there was no crowbar, there was no Kia, but somehow they sawed a hole in the roof.
They cut into that roof like it was a wedding cake.
Sunday night, this man broke into the iconic Mort's Deli on Clark Street in Tarzana by sawing a hole through the roof.
It was a clean cut with obviously a tool or a sawzall.
Security video shows the...
See, typically what happens is the first thing that happens is people steal from Home Depot, and then they use all the power tools to commit other crimes.
Well, it sounds like this is not the first time this guy has done this, because when they describe what happened to the roof, it sounds like he had the precision of a surgeon.
Security video shows the guy sneaking into this storage area and then busting into the back office, prying open a storage cabinet.
It's someone that's pretty obviously seen the lay of the land here. Maybe
they scoped out the place,
had some pastrami, took some notes.
You know what? I'm gonna take down this Mork. Not Mort. Knock him down a peg.
Casing the joint for a few days.
The suspect used this ladder that was stored in the back to get on top of the building and then cut a hole into the ceiling.
Oh, yeah, he ripped it.
Once inside, he stole cash and tips from the hardworking staff.
There couldn't have been that much money in there.
You're going through all of that to steal tip money from waitresses?
Once inside, he stole cash and tips from the hardworking staff. Mario Garcia has worked here 48 years.
I can't believe it, people do that. I mean, people don't have no shame to go to somebody, take people's property or no respect, no nothing. It's so sad.
Garcia has seen crime rise in the area, and just yesterday in a separate case, this woman who owns a nail shop next door had a necklace ripped off her neck.
Whoa!
That's pretty aggressive.
who owns a nail shop next door, had a necklace ripped off her neck.
They grab it and they gone for 1 minute.
Mort's had its window smashed not too long ago, and other occupants of the strip mall have been broken into as well.
It used to be a pretty good area.
Well, the key word is used to.
Barone says there's also evidence of transients on the roof.
You know they're bad if they're called transients.
Okay, you have transients just hanging out on your roof? Unless one of them is Dick Van Dyke, don't you just remove them with mace?
Unless the city doesn't want you to get involved.
Okay, how can you not remove them if they're on your roof?
Transients on the roof.
We found empty liquor bottles, clothes, toothpaste, all kinds of stuff up there.
Okay, who's brushing their teeth on the roof of Mort's?
Well, if they can live in the tunnels beneath the Strip in Las Vegas, I guess they can live on the roof at Mort's too.
Mort's is like a second home for Garcia, and he hopes someone recognizes this suspect and turns him in.
Yes, I hope so. We don't need those people in the street doing bad things, you know what I mean?
You know, maybe we need to do some DNA testing on the tube of toothpaste that was left on the roof, except LAPD is going to have to lay off all the people in the crime lab thanks to Karen Bass's budget.
But she's not cutting the police.
And many of the customers today told us that they wanted something to be done to clean this area up. And again, they're also hoping that anyone who might see this photo, again, you can go to KTLA.com, might recognize this person and turn himself in. Sharon, Micah, we'll send it back to you.
Yeah, he's not getting caught.
No.
But if you're that good at cutting holes into roofs and the alarm doesn't go off, wouldn't you set your sights on something a little more lucrative than a deli in the valley?
Although I will say this, and I'm not casting any aspersions on Mort's. Fine people own it. Fine people work there. If they do catch this guy who robbed their shop, and it's Mort that catches him and not the cops, don't order the tongue sandwich. I'm not saying he's been to Saudi Arabia before, but don't do it. So that's what's going on at Mort's. Randy, it's time to reopen the blotter.
If the cashier is dummy,
Questions?
No.
And this edition takes us to Hancock Park.
Hancock Park, which is supposed to be one of the nicest areas in the city of Los Angeles, is being victimized with brazen, rampant, daily home invasion robberies. And some residents are fed up, and they're ditching their fancy jewelry for fancy guns.
Don't mess with them.
For more, here's Fox 11 in Los Angeles.
Now to Hancock Park, where residents say home robberies have gotten out of control lately, especially on Friday nights.
Wasn't Karen Bass just doing a State of the City where she said crime is down?
Oh, yes, and they have to do it indoors because if they do it outdoors, she'd be drowned out by the sirens.
10 robberies in one neighborhood in just a couple of months. And Fox 11's Gina Silva joins us live from Hancock Park with the details there. Gina.
Laura, Christine, this is a community on edge. They have been hit so many times. And so far, these criminals, there's nothing stopping them.
It's scary, you know, it's very scary.
We've been hit maybe 10, 11 times in the past 2 months.
So one neighborhood, 11 robberies in 2 months.
Well, the problem with Hancock Park, and you're right, Hancock Park is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful neighborhood in Los Angeles. But it's right next to a bunch of big thoroughfares like Wilshire Boulevard, where you can knock off a house in Hancock Park and be in downtown L.A. lickety-split.
So I screamed, I yelled, get out, the police are on the way.
Hancock Park residents say they're fed up with being targeted by criminals. Security footage shows thieves dressed in all black looking like ninjas breaking.
Whoa!
Can you imagine waking up in the middle of the night wanting to make a sandwich or something, and you see a ninja in your living room?
Security footage shows thieves dressed in all black looking like ninjas breaking into homes and making off with jewelry, designer bags, cash, and even heavy-duty safes. Residents say...
Yeah, if your safe company can get stolen by somebody, it's not a very good safe.
No, it's not.
Residents say.
Ask Karen Bass.
They still haven't found her guns, have they?
No. And she never explained how, did they steal the gun safe too? Or did they get into the gun safe? Or were the guns not in the gun safe?
All very good questions.
Residents say many of the break-ins over the past couple of months have happened on Friday and Saturday nights during dinner. But there have also been late-night intrusions with families inside. Now the community is banding together to send a clear message to the criminals. Enough is enough.
We can't get an overnight patrol for this one neighborhood that's been hit this many times?
Especially considering these people pay a fortune to live here.
We are wise on...
Well, maybe that's equity now. We want the good neighborhoods to be as dangerous as the bad neighborhoods.
Well, they've gotten what they want.
We are wise onto your ways. We have removed all the valuables from our homes. And we have replaced them with our Second Amendment rights.
Oh, boy.
They're loaded up with guns.
Someone has got a shotgun under the pillow. And you might want to be careful if you're breaking into these homes in Hancock Park from now on. Because the new DA probably has the back of the homeowner with the shotgun.
Well, this guy sounds like he's not about to play.
We have families. We have kids. It's no longer worth it.
You know, every human being has a right to feel safe in their own home. And this right now feels like an epidemic in this neighborhood.
An epidemic of robberies.
Well, we had a DA that would tolerate it. Now we don't, so let's arrest him and throw the book at him.
You can come up with data to support almost any argument.
Don't miss that guy.
And the residents are begging for more law enforcement presence in their neighborhood. They say they are tired of being victims. And quite frankly, it's...
You got one.
Now I remember why I saved this story.
That's Gina Silva.
And the residents are begging for more law enforcement presence in their neighborhood. They say they are tired of being victims. And quite frankly, it's scary. Laura, Christine?
And I'm thinking, Gina, we keep hearing about these home invasion rings, these burglary rings. These look like true pros here.
Well, they're ninjas.
When they're not robbing homes, they're making movies.
Oh, they are pros, and they always show up in vehicles. For example, there was one crew that showed up in a Mercedes vehicle. When you ran the plate, it was a stolen vehicle. They know exactly what they're doing, the way they're dressed. I mean, it's very difficult to identify these men.
If you look at the numbers of how many cars are stolen a day in some of the big cities in California, whether it's Los Angeles or San Jose, it is insane. And, of course, Oakland.
Well, Oakland always makes the list.
Gina, this is a very wealthy area. I'm going to assume that most people have, a pretty high-end security system already.
Yeah, but what is that, an HD camera?
Yeah, all you do is you catch it on tape. Well, if you catch it on tape and they don't get arrested and the tape doesn't help you prosecute them, what's the point?
They have that. They have security cameras all around, and none of that is intimidating to these criminals. They're able to break in.
Yeah, the whole idea that security footage would lead to evidence that would lead to convictions got thrown out the window when Barbara Ferrer said, hey, everyone should wear a mask all the time.
Yeah. And how often do we look at these stories where they say time and time again they're wearing masks, so we can't identify them? It used to be illegal to wear a mask in public.
Criminals, they're able to break in, and it's almost as if they're targeting people. In fact, the residents were looking for cameras in their yards to see if maybe they were keeping an eye on them, because when they're doing the break-ins, at least during the dinner time, that's when people are going out to dinner. They break in, and within 5 minutes, they're gone.
All right. Gina Silva, thank you so much.
So that's what's going on in Hancock Park. Some residents fed up by the string of burglaries that they've decided to load up on weapons, and they're ready for them.
Let's go to Randy in Oakland.
Hello?
Hi there.
How you doing?
Good.
Hey, just a comment on the profanity. I think we're a civil society. I like to think that we're trying to be better people. And, if somebody's using profanity, I would think that, maybe they're not intelligent enough to properly communicate. Or maybe they don't have enough consideration for children that might be listening or religious people. And not only that, I think a casual believer in Christ would understand Ephesians 4:29, where it says, "No, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth." Just a number of those issues would make me think we'd want to keep them.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir.
So it's Gavin that's blaspheming every day.
I'll tell you, I do think if you're describing a story that's farcical, it's funnier to do it without the profanity, or at least it can be if you do it the right way.
Oh, you have to work harder to be more clever.
And that was David Letterman's whole act. David Letterman's act was there are funny words that you can use in place of common words. He never said, have a drink. He'd always say beverage, things of that nature. And it makes you expand your vocabulary in ways that I think can really enhance the story. Although it is fun to swear. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
David writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Guys, it's quite a short ride from Hancock Park to MacArthur Park.
That's true.
It's interesting because L.A. has some very good neighborhoods that are right on the border of some of the worst neighborhoods.
And people pay a fortune to live there.
Yes.
This is also part of the reason that people fight tooth and nail every time they try to bring a subway in. Because if you think it's bad with Wilshire Boulevard and other corridors that can get people from the good part of town to the bad part of town real fast, you put a subway in there, and guess what? It's going to get even worse.
We saw it happen in Santa Monica. We saw it happen in places like Azusa. And where's it going now? Beverly Hills.
Nice knowing you. All right, Randy, since we've hit the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off the air at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. You can get the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can listen to them when you're driving your car. You can listen to them when you're at work. You can even listen to them when you're on the metro, but be careful.
Do you feel safe driving metro?
It's the best way a question like that could ever be asked.
It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the founder of Golden Together and host of the Steve Hilton Show. He's also a candidate for governor here in the state of California. You can get him online at goldentogether.com and follow him on X at Steve Hilton X. Steve Hilton, welcome.
Fantastic. It's so great to be with you. I think this is my first appearance, John, with you as an official candidate for governor. So this is, of course, a historic moment.
I feel like we're breaking a bottle of champagne on a cruise ship.
Yes. Well, when this is all over, we will do that anyway. Let's talk about the campaign.
All right. Well, let's talk about the recent debacle that just happened in Sacramento, where Republican legislators, including Senator Shannon Grove from the Bakersfield area, wanted to make it a felony for individuals in California to buy or sell 16 and 17-year-olds for the purposes of sex. The Democrats in the legislature did not want that to become a felony. They said, out of equity. Gavin Newsom claims that he supports Shannon Grove and her efforts, but he didn't spend any political capital at all leaning on the legislature, the Democratic majority, I guess I should say, in the legislature, to do anything about it. What do you make of what happened there, and are you surprised that Newsom wants credit for taking the right position but didn't do anything at all to advance that policy?
No, everything here is exactly what we've come to expect from Newsom and all the Democrats. And before we really get into it, I think we've got to remind ourselves of why we are in this insane position of having to have a legislative argument in Sacramento about making a felony something that any normal person would assume would, of course, be a felony already. The reason we're in this position is because of Kamala Harris, because of Prop 57. So Prop 47, of course, is well known and was partially, mainly reversed last year with Prop 36. That was the one that made it basically legal to steal up to $950 a day and so on. But the lesser known one, which came 2 years later, Prop 57, Kamala Harris was even more misleading in pushing that one through when she was state attorney general. Prop 57 downgraded a whole bunch of crimes so that they wouldn't attract automatic prison time. And it is all part of their ideology of criminal justice reform and what they call decarceration. Nobody should be in jail. Jail is terrible. Prison is terrible. And all these sex-related crimes were among those downgraded so that they wouldn't attract automatic prison time. So that's what Shannon Grove has so persistently been working on over the past few years, taking these crimes one by one and trying to reinstate them as serious felonies that attract guaranteed jail time. That's why we are here. Now you come back to last week, and yet again, they revealed that these Democrats in Sacramento are just total ideologues, totally removed from common sense and what any normal person would think, and also incredibly arrogant, because only people who are so out of touch, so complacent about the idea that they're going to be in power forever, that there's no challenge to their rule, there's going to be one-party rule forever, only someone with that mentality would do something so obviously stupid and completely damaging to their public reputation as to argue that it's okay, effectively, that it's just like a parking ticket or a speeding fine to buy a kid for sex. It's just unbelievable that they would take that position. Now you come to Gavin Newsom. Just as before, he only steps in when he sees that there's a political problem for him, that this could hurt his reputation when he's running for president, which he will be doing soon. And so he tries to look as if he's doing something about it. But exactly to your point, he didn't actually do anything. He just put out a statement encouraging his legislators to move in the right direction. He didn't spend any political capital. He didn't go down there and bang the table and said, you guys got to get in line. He just put out a statement. And by the way, this is exactly what he does all the time. It's exactly what he did yesterday with his pathetic homelessness stunt, where he just wants to look as if he's doing something about homelessness, because that's another political liability for him. So he puts out this statement to local governments, oh, you really should end clear up homeless encampments. I really strongly suggest you do that. It's not doing anything. And there's another example, which was the Charlie Kirk interview, when he had Charlie on his podcast and agreed with Charlie that it was deeply unfair for biological men to compete in girls' sports. What did he do about this newfound passion for this issue? Absolutely nothing. You had two bills soon after that would have actually acted upon Gavin Newsom's assertion that it's deeply unfair. He did nothing. So this is what he does. Nothing. He literally does nothing. Just says things that he hopes will try and clean up his dirty reputation.
We're speaking with Steve Hilton, who you can follow on X at Steve Hilton X. Steve, recently the California Federation of Labor had a conference where they invited the Democratic candidates for governor to come address their membership. Pitchers of beer, by the way, on each table, so you can't knock them for that. But one of the candidates who actually got booed at this forum was former Orange County Congresswoman Katie Porter. And she got booed because she is the only Democrat so far that's been openly critical of the high-speed rail, California's bullet train, where she implied that it may be time to cut bait with the train. And in that room, the high-speed rail is extremely popular because from the point of view of the public employee unions in particular, that's jobs. And if we have more jobs, it doesn't matter if we ever get a train because there are high-paying jobs, and that's what we like, and that's what the program is for. After they started booing her, she backtracked on her position and essentially said, well, we should keep the rail, but I should be the one in charge to make sure that everything gets done. At the same time that all of that was going on, I want to read for you a tweet from U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, Democrat of California, on what he had to say about high-speed rail and get you to respond to it. Here's a tweet, quote, California's high-speed rail is the most audited public works project in the country. Trump and his administration are hell-bent on killing the project. Why? Because they'd rather waste billions and lose jobs for political gains. California is leading the nation in realizing the vision of building the nation's first true high-speed rail, and I'm going to continue to fight for it, end quote. So now the position is that the high-speed rail is a smashing success, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong.
So even the New York Times recently ran a massive expose of what an absolute calamity this is. The New York Times, and they were saying, they told the truth about it, which is that they were sold to us that it was going to be 2.5 hours from Los Angeles to San Francisco. It was going to be open by now. Right, it's supposed to be operating now, and it's going to be this new era of transportation. And now they're saying, well, maybe by 2033, you'll be able to get from Merced to Bakersfield, if you're lucky. Already, it's the most expensive railway construction in the history of the world, and they're doing it on the flattest bit and easiest bit of the whole projected route from the flat part of the Central Valley. It's just mind-boggling what a disaster this is. And exactly to your point, it's just hilarious to see them defending this. It's amazing. But it shows you the power of the unions, the iron grip of the unions on these Democrat politicians. The fact that Katie Porter dared to kind of slightly step out of line, and then within minutes she's back. I'm looking at the quote. She says afterwards, exactly as you said, she was booed, and then she stepped back in line immediately and said, quote, we have to figure out how to build it. You've had like 15 years to figure out how to build it, and you haven't. So please, can we just give us a break? And the thing is that if you look at these unions and how, it's really shocking what happened at this event. And even the Politico, which is generally pro-Democrat on these things, they title their article reporting on this, Governor Hopefuls Kiss Labor's Ring. That's exactly what they did. It's just pathetic, this kind of parade of genuflection where they're just going in front of their union bosses. And they are the bosses. They pay their campaign expenses. They totally control the Democrats. That's why we have these disastrous outcomes on everything, because they're serving the special interest, the unions, not the public interest. If you look at Gavin Newsom, the vast majority of his donations come from government unions. No wonder we had the schools locked down longer than anywhere else in the country, because he's just doing what he was told by his boss, the teacher unions. And all of these candidates, going along there and sucking up to them. This is why we need a change. This is what I call the Democrat industrial complex. It's not just the politicians. It's the politicians, the unions who fund their campaigns, the activists who give them the ideological marching orders and instructions, and then, of course, the bureaucrats that implement all this nonsense. That's the explanation for the disaster that California is in. They're like puppets, these Democrat governor candidates, puppets of the unions, and we're never going to get anywhere in the state unless we change direction completely. And this is just yet another example. The really strong example of just how arrogant these unions are in their power was what you saw in an Orange County Senate race last year, Josh Newman, where there was a Democrat who had, for the state Senate, who had a little bit stepped out of line, a bit like Katie Porter at this event, said something mildly annoying to one of the government unions, something to do with UC policy. And so what did? They put $1 million into his Republican opponent, because they're so arrogant. They think, well, who cares about losing a Senate seat? We've got a supermajority anyway. We're just going to teach these Democrats that if they step out of line the slightest degree, we're going to destroy their careers. And that's why these candidates are so terrified. That's why they back down within minutes. How can you have someone like that as governor? Katie Porter goes interim, gets a boo, and changes her position. Utterly pathetic.
Let's shift gears here for a second and talk strategy, because the two positions that we just talked about, saying that it should not be a felony to buy or sell 16 and 17-year-olds for the purpose of sex, or claiming that the high-speed rail is a smashing success, those are not defensible positions. You cannot, with a straight face, make those arguments and get anyone to believe what you're saying. But in a one-party state, in the bubble that is Sacramento, that's what they say, and that's what they all believe. if you're on stage with these candidates and they're making those indefensible arguments, how do you cut through the noise to get the average person to understand how ridiculous they're being?
I think it's the extremism that links them, and I think that you just say you connect it to their daily experience. So how can any normal person agree with it? This is why we have rampant crime across California. This kind of attitude. And then on the rail project, you say this kind of attitude is why we pay the highest taxes in the country and have the worst results, because they don't care about you. They don't care about your life. They only care about pleasing the people who they really report to, the unions and the far-left activists, and that's what we got to change.
Steve Hilton, founder of Golden Together, host of The Steve Hilton Show, and candidate for governor here in the state of California. You can get him online at goldentogether.com and follow him on X at Steve Hilton X. Steve, thanks so much for stopping by, and congratulations on making the campaign official.
Fantastic. Great to see you, John. Talk soon.
All right. Sounds good. We just spoke with Steve Hilton, who is a candidate for governor here in the state of California. And I'll tell you, he's got a tall order facing him because California is a very blue state. It's a one-party state. It has been for quite some time. The last Republican to win a statewide race here was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he wasn't much of a Republican. Steve Poizner did it, too, for insurance commissioner. But that's going all the way back to 2010. And what's going to happen, I predict, it's not really even a prediction because we've already seen some evidence of it, is that the Democratic candidates for governor, whether it be Katie Porter or Antonio Villaraigosa or Javier Becerra or any of the rest of them, Kamala Harris, should she jump into the race, they're all going to run on federal issues. They're going to run on immigration. They're going to run on hating President Trump. They're going to run on abortion. They might run on, Ukraine. They're going to run on a bunch of subjects that really have nothing to do with California state government or politics. Because if you're running in a one-party state, then running as the overtly partisan Democratic candidate is usually good enough to win. If you're running against them, you have to find a way to get them to justify all of the bad policy that has wrecked the state. And so many of those positions that they're taking are not defensible. You cannot, with a straight face, say it should not be a felony to buy or sell a 16 or 17-year-old for sex. There's no way. Imagine going out to dinner with your friends and making that statement. If you're there with a woman, you're going to get hit right between the eyes with something sharp or made of glass. Imagine with a straight face sitting at the end of a bar telling the people beside you and the bartender that the high-speed rail is a huge success. They would make mincemeat out of you. No one believes that. But in a one-party state, I guess making those arguments is good enough. But if you have to make them over and over and over again, at some point you're going to start to lose people. And that is the objective of Steve Hilton, or if it's not him, whoever the candidate who's representing the opposing point of view, that's the goal, is to just stay laser focused on all of these issues where the Democrats have failed us and not let them shift the argument to something about Ukraine or something about Trump or something that doesn't have anything to do with anything here in California. That's the game. That's the goal.